So today we're learning about the supine. You already know a bunch of uses for the fourth principal parts of verbs. They are the base for the perfect, pluperfect, and future perfect passive verbs, as well as some of the participles and infinitives. Now there's another usage as well, and it's called the supine. The supine is, if you look in your Latin dictionary at a verb entry, you'll see that most principal parts end in um. So if I say dico, dicere, dixi, dictum, dictum is the supine. Now, if it ends in us, that is the perfect passive participle. But most of the time you'll see that it ends in and that's the supine. The supine only exists in two cases: the accusative or the ablative. And it translates as to verb in both the accusative and the ablative form. Now you do have a supine page in your chart book that you can refer to that'll help you, but I'm going to go over everything you need to know here as well. Now, in the accusative, each of these cases only has very specific uses in Latin. So let's talk about the accusative. And the accusative, you always know, ends in which is pretty common because you remember that your second declension nouns end in in the accusative, so that'll help you remember. Now, the accusative is only found after verbs of motion, and it's used to show purpose. They're always translated, remember, as to verb, and it's always singular, and the accusative supine can take a direct object. Okay? And although it appears passive, it's always translated actively. Because remember, we've used that fourth principal part to do passive. It's always translated actively. So let's take a look at a couple of these. Legatus ad Caesarem mittunt rogatum auxilium. So here we have rogatum is the supine. We can see it's the accusative form because it ends in om. And here the verb of motion is mittunt, right? Mittunt, which means to send. So, and the purpose of sending the officers to Caesar is the accusative supine, is rogatum, to ask. So we've got to send here, and that's the verb of motion, to ask. So, legatus ad Caesarem mittunt rogatum auxilium. They send officers to Caesar to ask for help. So we have the motion here, and in the supine, I'm going to erase this. We have the supine, we have the purpose. Okay, and again, it's in the accusative form. All right, let's look at the second one. Aeneas and Dido venatum and nemos ire parant. So here we have the supine. You can already see it in the accusative. It's got that in there. And here is our verb of motion. Okay, the verb of motion is ire. So here's the verb of motion. And the purpose is the accusative, or remember the accusative, the supine in the accusative. And so the Aeneas and Dido prepare to go into the grove to hunt. So here we have to go, this is the motion, and this is the purpose. Okay, pretty simple. That is it in the accusative form. What you have to pay attention to is it looks like a noun, right? Because it's got a noun ending. That's what is the only really thing that's tricky about it. All right, ablative. Now, the ablative form of the supine ends in u. You can see it ends in u with the macron here. And it also, just like the first one, is translated as to verb, and it's accompanied by adjectives which are usually in the neuter. Now, the ablative supine is used to indicate the point of view from which something is seen, and that's called the ablative of respect. Okay, now, or specification, sometimes you'll see that. Now, I put a list of words and phrases that trigger the ablative form of the supine in your chart. I put some verbs in there that will help you, that you know to come with it. So, like the accusative, it's always singular, and it cannot have a direct object. Now, it's also used an exclamation. If I said there was a volcano that was spewing forth explosions of lava 200 feet in the air, it was mirabile visu, extraordinary to see. Okay, so I put a list of ablative supines in your chart. Here's some examples. Difficile, here's our adjective, right? Because it's accompanied by an adjective. Dictu, here it is. Here's the ablative supine. It was difficult to say. Again, skitu, ablative supine, and here is our adjective. It is necessary to know. Let's take a look at a couple others. Personam terribilem visu in ludogerbas. At school, you were wearing a mask. Here's our adjective. Terrible. Here's our supine, again, with the to, right? Which is always translated as to see. It was terrible to see. Dolor erat difficilis latu. Again, we have our supine here, and we have our adjective. So it's paired with an adjective, again, remember, usually in the neuter. The pain was difficult to bear. Again, we have the to. Pretty simple. You just have to know what you're looking for. Remember, they often look like nouns. So pay attention to that, and that's all there is.